Hello all, this is James Johnson, aka Sulfurblade, and I am back here with another review of Star Trek Discovery, Season 2, Episode 12. What is the name of this one? Through the Valley of the Shadows. Through the Valley of the Shadows. So, yeah. We start this episode with the fourth signal of the 7 signals that we started the season with. Of course, we discover the fourth signal of the seven signals we started this season with just after a Hollow Mom moment where Spock and Burnham's mother basically gives Burnham a pep talk, and she knew to do this because Spock reached out. But then we get to the discussion over the fourth signal of 7, and Burnham's not impressed. Mom told her that these signals have nothing to do with anything, that she didn't know about them, and so therefore they're not that important. Burnham has other concerns, but Spock remains vigilant that these signals are important. And the fourth signal of 7, it just happens to show up over the Klingon monastery to Kailash on the planet Boreth. And this Klingon monastery to Kailash happens to be where Vok Tyler and Laurel sent their child to, of course. And during the debriefing about the fourth signal of 7, Vok Tyler basically explains that, this is the Klingon monastery to Kailash, and that's what's on Boreth. And he leaves out the information about his child, of which Burnham then gives stink eye to Vok, because Burnham knows Vok Tyler like the back of her hand, and he's not saying something, so we need to end with a stink eye scene showing that Burnham is the most perceptive person in the universe. Okay, so then we jump ahead, and we have Burnham basically interrogating Vok Tyler about what's going on, what are you sharing, what's this information you're withholding, and Vok Tyler goes ahead and shares the info about his son, and this leads to an embrace between Vok Tyler and Mikey Spock, because we must continue this love affair between these two disliked characters. Then we discover that the rare minerals that are being guarded by the Klingon monastery to Kailash. Klingon monastery. So, Klingons. This race of warriors whose whole purpose in life is to find honor through combat, has a bunch of monks on a planet dedicated to Kalis. Klingons are incredibly spiritual and religious people. But anyway, so this monastery is kind of a guise, because it's actually there to protect rare minerals. And these rare minerals we discover are dun 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 time crystals. Yes. The Klingon monastery to Kailash is really a Klingon guard post for the time crystals. Well, Pike discovers this, and and Pike is under the impression that we need time travel in order to survive. Pike is adamant that it is very necessary that we pursue time travel ability to save all sentient beings, because time travel so far has done so much for the sentient beings of the galaxy. But Pike, he's convicted. It's obviously time travel is going to be the way to save the day. Vok Tyler and Laurel have and Laurel have a fight in front of Pike, basically about their son, which Pike then volunteers to go down to the planet in Vok Tyler's place, thus ending the fight. Then we cut to the beginning of the other part of this episode. So this episode is a split scene type deal where Burnham's off doing one thing and Pike's doing another. It's got basically two stories within it. And so basically, Saru gives permission for Burnham to go play hero, and Burnham is kind of like, wait, you're giving me permission this easily? And Saru's like, well, I guess since I'm acting captain, that's what you came to me for, and I guess I'm a new acting captain now that I've lost my ganglia. I'm a changed person. As we the audience know that Saru has something to do with control, according to Control, right out of Control's mouth, and we're wondering, well, is Saru playing into Control's hand here somehow by allowing Burnham to go off on this hero mission? Huh. Maybe. Then Pike goes down to the planet, and he talks to an Andorian Klingon. Yes, the makeup job. Oh my god. If they were trying to make a Klingon Andorian crossbreed, then they were very successful. But sadly, no, this was not a Klingon Andorian crossbreed that we were talking to. No, this was actually the son of Laurel and Vok Tyler, who is all grown up down on the planet because time's different down there, and he's no less than a timekeeper. Yes, the monks down on the planet are timekeepers. Uh, well, Pike is basically, he goes down and he has a conversation with the timekeeper, and the timekeeper tells him to go away, and Pike's like, no, I'm not going to go away. I'm not leaving. I need to know the secrets of time, basically, and the timekeeper is like, well, time will tell. All cryptic like something bad is gonna happen if you mess with time. Then we flash back to the other thing that's going on, and we see Spock shows up at Burnham's shuttle, and basically informs Burnham that he's going with by Saru's orders, and Burnham is visibly upset with this. She wanted to go play hero all on her own, and when she discovered that she wasn't going to be able to go play in the sandbox by herself, and then her brother has to come with her, she throws a bit of a temper tantrum. But that's Burnham, right? A temper tantrum, a walking temper tantrum. Now we come back from commercial break, and we see the crew eating, but Stamets isn't. He's obviously has something on his mind. He's upset about something. The rest of the crew is rather jovial and eating, but Stamets is not. And who else shows up in the scene but the annoying engineer? The annoying engineer is back. And so now we have a conversation between the annoying engineer and Stamets. Basically, Stamets looks over towards Hugh, and the annoying engineer looks over towards Hugh, and she pieces two and two together and is like, oh, Hugh is causing Stamets's issues right now. And so she imparts her opinion. She's like, I thought we got past this. As she says to Stamets, like, her and Stamets are on some sort of friend level all of a sudden, and she thought Stamets was past his issues with Hugh. Thought the scene was pretty crap myself. Now we go back to the planet with Pike, and we discover that time flows differently down on the planet. We discover that the Time Guardian that Pike is walking with is actually Bach Tyler's kid, and he's all grown up. As we see plants instantly growing to full size, and obviously, yes, time is a bit wacky on the planet. Now we cut back to Spock and Burnham having a conversation. Basically, we get down to the heart of the conversation to find out that Burnham is angry, right? And Spock's like, alludes to that point, and Burnham's like, I'm not angry, I'm enraged, she says. Because, Burnham is just this walking bag of emotions that can't be controlled. She does whatever the hell she wants. And Spock replies with, rage is the enemy of logic. All of a sudden, Spock is back to being Vulcan-like Spock, where he gives actual good Vulcan advice to Burnham. He's not the Spock from the episode before, who was just as emotional and as enraged and as poorly written as Burnham is. The previous episode, now Spock is back to being cool-headed, level-headed, and logical, instructing Burnham that rage is the enemy of logic. Can we get some sort of consistency here? The shuttle comes out of warp and slams into a body. Yes, there's bodies in space, and evidently it's the entire crew. As Burnham looks out, she's like, oh, "That's the entire crew." And now we're like, "Oh no!" And we discover that one of the crew is still alive. And Burnham knows the survivor. It's a former shipmate from the Shenzhou. Now they talk to the former shipmate, who explains what happened on the ship, and he's visibly distraught and doesn't want to go back to the ship. Burnham's like, you got to go back, and he's like, no, I can't go back, and they're like, no, you must. And so then we end up going to the ship because we have to stop control and that can only be done by going to the ship. Now we see Spock, Tyler, and Laurel having a conversation where Laurel is basically like, I know that you, Spock Tyler, will always love Burnham. And I also know that you'll always love our son, and we come to some sort of emotional closure between Spock Tyler and Laurel, where basically she's accepting of the fact that Spock Tyler is in love with another woman, but is also accepting of the fact that he will always love their son. Was the scene really even needed in the episode? I'm not so sure. Actually, much of the Spock Tyler storyline in all of the episode could just be removed, and it would probably make the show flow much better. I mean, we edited everything to do with Spock Tyler out of the show. It wouldn't change much of anything, and the show would probably be smoother. But I digress. Now we go down to see Pike. And Pike is going on his tour of the wacky planet of Strange Time, where the Timekeeper, Vox's son, shows him the pillar of the past, and then shows him the pillar of the present, and then leads him deep into the wacky time crystal cave, where he's giving a warning. Basically, if you continue with your time pursuit here, madness will set in, and the veil will be lifted, and you will see the horrible future that awaits you, and there's no going back once you touch the crystal. And Pike, he reaches out, grabs the crystal. He sees the accident that causes him to end up in a chair, grossly disfigured, and discovers that his future is not a bright one. Then he's poised with the question from the timekeeper if he really wants to go through with this future, which was set in stone from the moment he touched the crystal, but evidently there's some way to go back now. But Pike is like, nope, nope, nope. I'm a Starfleet captain. I have compassion and loyalty and love and courage and all of these human emotions, and so therefore, even though I know what's going to become of me of the future, I must go through with my duties as a Starfleet captain and save the universe. And this really impresses the timekeeper. He's very impressed by Pike, and they go through with whatever happens down on the wacky time planet. Now we cut back to the Burnham section of the show. Burnham and Spock and the acquaintance beam onto the bridge of the Section 31 ship, and Burnham, of course, has her phaser drawn, and she's all, I'm gonna shoot something, because we're dealing with Control, this AI thing that's infected the memory banks of the ship, and there's no other life signs on it, but I'm going to have my phaser out and ready to shoot something, because that's who Burnham is. She needs to be on the guard to shoot something real fast. Spock does also have his phaser out, but he's nowhere near as gung-ho about shooting something. He's just kind of has it on the ready just in case. But Burnham, she's aiming it around like she's in the middle of a crime drama, and they're clearing the the rooms. Bedroom clear, bathroom clear. Okay, house is clear. Burnham, she's clearing that bridge, man. When they get over there, the ship, well, it comes alive. They've basically fallen into the trap. Now we cut back to the Discovery, and we see the annoying engineer Tig Nataru. She's in sickbay for a hangnail, and basically, more or less, to have a talk with Hugh, because she's going to set the relationship between Stamets and Hugh straight, because that's what she does as an engineer. She fixes relationships, and she basically explains to Hugh that, Hugh sees her ring, and this leads to a conversation that she too is married to another woman. So, we have another unnormal marriage, if you will, that Hugh can then relate to. And she explains that she lost her wife, and Hugh still has a chance to go back and have his husband. And she basically slaps Hugh and is like, I wish I had your chance to make things right, and to have my happy life again. And this makes Hugh see the light, or at least it looks like Hugh has now seen the light. And then we've gone through that scene of, why is Hugh still alive? Why are we still perpetuating this relationship between Stamets and Hugh? Why are we still perpetuating social justice warfare storylines? Why do we need to have everybody that's married on the Starfleet Discovery be either girl and girl and guy? Can't we have a normal relationship anymore? I mean, everything we watch these days, Lando Calrissian is pansexual, and it's... I understand that there's a need to try to make all of this strange stuff not strange. Great. But can we have anything normal anymore? So anyway, we get through that obviously interjected SJW narrative, and we get back to the show. Burnham comes up with the way that they're going to trap Control. They're going to use a dummy startup system. She's going to create a dummy startup system to trap Control. The writers were really having a hard time with this one, because the best they could come up with was Burnham creating a dummy startup system. Yes. Excellent. I'm so behind this plotline. Anyway, so they start their dummy startup system. And Spock has to go, or somebody has to go to the control room, and Spock volunteers to go because reasons. Which leaves Burnham alone with the acquaintance of hers from the Shenzhou. And the acquaintance starts talking, well, cryptic-like, and Burnham gets the sense that her acquaintance isn't really the human friend that she thinks he is. No, it's Control inhabiting another human being, and so Burnham starts to reach for her phaser, but the acquaintance is like, no, I wouldn't do that if I were you, because if you touch that phaser, I will cross the room in .8 of a second and crush your mitochondria or something like that. So this 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 Control humanoid has the ability to cross a room a fairly sizable distance gap between the two of them in .8 of a second, which basically makes him the Flash. He's like, faster than the speed of light. He should just be zipping around with, blur effects because he's that fast according to what he just said. And Burnham stops reaching for her phaser because Burnham, she knows that this is true. He's really fast, and she doesn't have a chance to reach for her phaser that's only an inch or two away from her fingertips. So she backs off. Then Control asks for Burnham's help. We start to realize that this is all a trap. This is all a setup. This was put in place to get Burnham to the location, which goes back to Saru approving the mission. Is Saru still under the control of Control? We have to wonder. Then we have a phaser fight because super Control person that can cross room in .8 of a second can barely dodge phaser blasts, and they have a phaser shootout, and there seems to be no great human or no great power from the Control being who's having an ordinary phaser shootout. Then all of a sudden, after the phaser shootout kind of ends, the firefight ends, the Control being kind of gets the drop on Burnham. All of a sudden, he starts using his incredible speed and gets Burnham to the floor. Now that he has Burnham pinned to the floor, he reaches to stick Burnham with evidently a device that's going to turn Burnham into another controlled entity. And he's swinging down on her eye, and Burnham, the normal, ordinary human Burnham, reaches her arm up and blocks his downward strike. Remind you, this is the same being that can cross a room in .8 of a second, somehow swings, the swing to stab this thing into Burnham's eye takes, 5 seconds. Plenty of time for the human being to reach up and stop the incredibly fast being from sticking the pin in her eye. Nothing makes sense in this show. There's no sense of continuity. It's just like, let's assume that everyone watching the show is a bunch of morons, and they're just going to accept the fact that we don't know how to give them anything believable to watch. So then Spock shows up, saves the day, pulls the being off of her, while she struggled to hold back the needle. I mean, she was able to hold back this incredibly strong Control being from stabbing this thing into her eye. because Burnham is, a superwoman. She's incredibly strong. She could hold back something that's far stronger than her because plot hole. So Spock pulls this thing off of her. Now we get into the phaser fight scene again, where we shoot the incredibly fast control alien about 40 times with a phaser, and we create big holes in the control alien that then disassembles itself into a bunch of nanites, and the nanites rush across the floor to get Burnham. So we go from being a thing in a human form that's super fast to thousands of nanites that arguably are far stronger and harder to stop than the human formed version of the enemy. I mean, why isn't Control just walking around as nanites all the time? Have you watched Stargate Atlantis? Nanites are like the ultimate bad guy. The replicators nearly destroyed the Asgard. But hey, Discovery can't. Evidently, Discovery has watched Stargate because they can't seem to come up with anything clever on their own. Of course, nanites must come from the body of Control because, that's what has to happen in sci-fi. Well, Spock, he saves the day by magnetizing the floor and locking the nanites to the floor. Yay, Spock. Spock then apologizes for being so slow to find the solution, even though none of the nanites harmed Burnham, and there was no reason for an apology. It really didn't make any sense. The end outcome was that the threat was neutralized, and whether or not the threat was neutralized a second earlier or a second later really had no outcome on anything, but Spock, for some reason, saw a need to apologize for how long it took. And of course, Burnham, being the superhero, is like, no, it was right on time. You did fine, Spock. You're my glorious sidekick. Thank you for trying your hardest. Because we know if it was Burnham, it would have been much faster. I think this was an attempt to try to bring Spock down and to elevate Burnham over Spock. Now, Spock comes to the logical conclusion that Burnham is the true threat. That since Control is asking Burnham for help, that Burnham must be the element that Control cannot stop, and or is the wildcard element. As Spock was already saying earlier in the episode that the signals all correlate to Burnham, not to her mother, and that the signals are important, blah, blah, blah. So therefore, we're back on the whole Burnham is the Red Angel because, dun dun dun, Mom has gone back. Mom and Burnham share the same DNA, the same ability to control the Red Angel suit. Stamets and Tig Notaro are smart enough to build a new suit, and Captain Pike has just came back with a time crystal, which basically, if you add 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, plus Spock saying that it's obvious that Burnham is behind the signals, well, it clearly equals Burnham is the Red Angel. It's just that there's 2 Red Angels. Dun dun dun, you didn't see that coming, did you? And so Burnham is still the threat to Control and is still the hero that's going to save the day. But, on a nice little side note, Vok Tyler and Laurel, they get to learn their son's name, and they think it's a good name. But, you know, we have to, of course, end the episode with some perilous, uh, foreboding scene. And that is that Section 31 ships are popping out of nowhere, and they are coming for the Discovery. In fact, there's 30 Section 31 ships. Nearly the entire Section 31 fleet is coming for Star Trek Discovery. And Burnham, being the only person that can come to any logical premise, or is the only person that can save the day, quickly ascertains that the only way to save the universe is to destroy the Discovery. Because the Discovery carries the sphere data, and that's what the Section 31 ships are coming for. And of course, we must do that because Discovery is far outgunned by these 30 Section 31 ships. There's no way they could stand a chance. You know, the Discovery, the single ship that single-handedly won the Klingon human war, the most powerful ship Starfleet has ever had, that can be everywhere simultaneously through the fungus network, and takes on 30 Klingon ships with ease like a hot knife through butter, but yet Section 31 ships are vastly outgunning it? Sure. Okay, if you say so. Storyline, we got to go with it. We can't think for ourselves. Just, you know, that's, you know, this show has no continuity. But I digress. Anyway, that's pretty much everything that happened in this episode. How do I feel about this episode? My gut feelings is that this episode was just crap. Unlike the last episode, where I felt like it was kind of a stagnation of not really worse than the episode before it, but pretty much the same. Like episode 10 and 11 were very much on the same wavelength, and there was no improvement or deprovement. This one was a step downhill. This was not as good as the last episode. At least from my gut reaction, saying, did I like this episode? Did I find it enjoyable to watch? Was it fun to watch? Is there anything about this episode that gives me hope for the show in general? No. This episode was trash. This is back into the gutter, the sewage that is Star Trek Discovery. This is one of the worst episodes of the season. There was nothing in this episode that showed any growth to the series. In fact, they brought back a lot of garbage. We got to see the annoying engineer again. We got to see more of the bad-looking Klingons again. I don't know where. I don't really know. And now we get more of the Burnham as the superhero storyline being thrown back into our face again. One of the things that it was nice to see that Burnham's mom showed up is that Burnham's mom could have retconned the whole show. They could have killed off Burnham's mom and thus killed off Burnham, and thus Discovery never happened. The Klingon War never happened. Basically, everything about Star Trek Discovery could have been fixed by basically removing Burnham from the timeline, and the easiest way to have done that would have been with Burnham's mom. But now we're going back to Burnham being the next time traveler, being the Red Angel after all, and she's gonna save the day, blah blah blah. it's not looking good for Star Trek Discovery. So basically, if I was to generalize this season 2 as a whole, it kind of went on an upward trend. Upward trend to about, I don't know, see, episode 9-ish? Up to around episode 9, there was a pretty clear upward tick of the show was improving. Then it flatlined with 10 and 11, and now it's gone on a steep downward curve, going back to the crap that was season 1. Anyway, there's not much more to say about this episode of Star Trek Discovery. So, hopefully you appreciate my content. If so, leave a like and subscribe. Until next time, y'all. Peace.